All right, guys, we are back with a new episode. Today we have a very, very special guest, and we're going to be discussing a very important topic for homeowners. Today's guest is Kim Stepanuk of MBH Settlement Group. Kim, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Kim, give us a brief story about yourself, your background, how long you've been doing this, and what MBH does, and their role in the industry.
Sure. My name's Kim Stepanuk. I work at MBH Settlement Group, which is a settlement and title company based out of Northern Virginia. So we serve Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland areas. Company's been around for 25 years, so we've been assisting home buyers, people buying homes, as well as commercial properties for the last 25 years. Also assisting with some refinances in the area as well. I live in Columbia, Maryland with my husband, as well as my 18-month-old daughter. We've been there for about a year now, but we've lived in DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland as well, so we know a lot about the area.
Yeah.
I've been practicing law since 2013. And I have a background in litigation, so happy to assist people with the real estate contracts and the real estate documents. But if something goes wrong or you have questions about the contract, I'm happy to explain what can happen down the road. If it were to be a court experience, we can assist you with that process.
Absolutely. So why did you choose this industry? Why this field?
I love helping people celebrate the transaction. So again, my background is in litigation, high conflict litigation. So a lot of times people are fighting over issues. In real estate, everyone's working towards the same goal. Buyers and sellers, once there's a ratified contract, everyone wants to work towards settlement. So it's a really exciting experience, especially for first-time home buyers or anyone buying a home or even commercial property for the expansion of their business.
Yeah.
So I love being a part of that exciting experience and that milestone in their life. Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's definitely a very good reason to do it. Okay, so this is for... I can't even say most. This is for all homeowners. This topic is very, very important. Let me start with, as a title company, you guys are usually behind the scenes, right?
Absolutely.
What's the actual role with you guys being behind the scenes? What is the actual role of a title company?
Our goal is twofold. One, to make sure that the buyer, whoever's purchasing the property, is receiving clean and clear title, that there's no judgments, no liens, no encumbrances on the property. They are receiving clean title, no issues, so that they can subsequently transfer it or own it without any issues. We also issue what's called title insurance, which is a form of insurance protecting your title. So similar to life insurance or health insurance, it's protecting against an hopefully unlikely scenario where someone would challenge your ownership in the property. For example, obtain a home equity line in your name, record that judgment with the land records. Hopefully there's some safeguards in place where that wouldn't happen, but where fraud is on the rise, if that were to happen to you, you would bring your title insurance policy back to us. We would make sure you had adequate legal representation to defend against the clean and clear title that we've provided to you. Another example is if someone were to challenge your ownership. For example, if they said that their family owned the property 40 years ago and they were never compensated, or their family was never compensated for their ownership interest in the property, then they could file an action in court saying that there was an issue. Whether it's a strong or weak claim is another issue, but it's expensive to have to hire an attorney to defend your ownership interest in the property. But because we do have attorneys working for our company, making sure you are receiving that clean and clear title at settlement, we stand behind our product. So we are issuing that insurance so that if someone were to come back and challenge your ownership interest, you'd be protected as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Another question for you. When a contract comes into your office, who does the attorney represent?
A lot of settlement attorneys will say that they represent the contract because we do not represent the buyer or the seller. We're a neutral in the transaction. As I mentioned, we're making sure that you receive clean and clear title, no issues. So we will run a title search. The attorneys will review the documents that come back from the land records. So we're looking for judgments, unpaid medical bills, unpaid tax liens, anyone that said you owed them money and obtained a judgment in court. liens, so unpaid sewer bills, unpaid water bills. Solar panels is another popular lien that we see because they are paid in installments. So sometimes the solar panel company will put a lien on the property saying that when it's sold, it needs to be paid in full. That's what we're looking for when we review that raw title search.
Right.
The attorneys will review it in advance of settlement. It will be flagged. We'll work with the buyers and the sellers to make sure those issues are resolved before settlement so that we can adequately insure the property.
Right.
So we're not representing the buyer or the seller. We're just making sure that clean and clear title is delivered at settlement. And that's why it can be important to make sure you have a great advocate on your side.
Yeah. And for the listeners and for the viewers, just so they are more knowledgeable about this stuff. So what happens in the event that there is a lien on the property? And let's say the seller does not have the funds to take care of it.
That's something that we would always bring to your attention when we find it. If they don't have the funds to bring to settlement, we may not proceed with the settlement. You may not wish to sell the property at that time. That's something you could discuss if you're concerned about it with your real estate agent or with an attorney in advance of settlement. We do often hear from people in advance wanting to either get a raw title search or wanting us to check the land records, wanting us to check Maryland Judiciary Case Search or any of the Virginia equivalents, which would show us if there's any court judgments against an individual. It's not a full title search, but we can usually spot some of these items before a contract's even formed. So we do hear sometimes from listing agents asking us to do a little bit of background research to see if anything's standing out before the property's listed. Yeah. But usually we do everything in our power to try to resolve those issues. If it's an unreleased deed of trust, meaning there's a deed of trust from a prior owner that has not been resolved, or it's not showing as that it's resolved in the land records, usually what we see is a deed of trust or a mortgage has been paid off as part of a prior transaction, and the mortgage company, the lender, or whoever was holding that deed of trust just did not record a certificate of satisfaction with the land records, meaning they did not file the appropriate legal paperwork with the land records to show it had been released. Sometimes it's just a matter of us tracking down that document. There's various ways we can do that, different tracking systems through our internal contacts, but we usually make sure we can track down that appropriate document. But there's various ways we can make sure that that's resolved before a settlement.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. A lot happens behind the scenes.
A lot happens behind the scenes.
Wow. Can we touch on HOAs real quick?
Sure.
So let's say, in an instance, because, we're obviously a home improvement company, we deal with HOAs quite a bit.
Absolutely.
We have homeowners tell us often that they don't care about getting an HOA approval. They're just going to go ahead and proceed with a project regardless, right? They feel as though, they pay the mortgage, it's their home, therefore it needs to be their decision and not get the HOA involved. So I've seen cases to where HOAs actually put a lien on the property, and
Absolutely.
Obviously, they can't sell until they settle that lien. So what can you tell us about that?
We deal a lot with homeowners associations, also the legal term planned unit development. So when we work with when we spot an issue, it sometimes does show up on the raw title search, just like you've indicated, where they've gone ahead and put a lien on the property. That can be one of a few things. It could be that the homeowner did not pay homeowners association dues, or it could be that there's penalties or fees that have been assigned specifically to them for not following the HOA rules. For example, if the HOA has rules and regulations about how high a fence could be, if it says it can only be 38 inches and you build a 60-inch fence, the HOA can continue to fine you for every month, depending upon the HOA rules, for not complying with those rules and regulations. They can ask that it be taken down, and it can prevent the sale.
Sure.
So anytime a homeowner is transferring a property that's located within an HOA or a planned unit development, the seller does have to order a resale package. Sometimes it's ordered by the buyer, but usually the parties cooperate to make sure that resale package is transferred to the buyer. That resale package will identify any issues. So if that fence is not in compliance, the HOA will say this must be resolved in advance of settlement. That packet is transferred between the parties. It doesn't necessarily come to us, but it can be flagged as an issue prior to settlement. And if the buyers do not resolve it in advance of settlement, asking that the sellers make it right, then the issues can fall on the buyers, and the buyers can continue to get fined. So
Interesting.
it is important for when someone's buying a home that they make sure to review that resale package with their attorney or with their real estate agent to make sure those issues are addressed and that they don't subsequently subject themselves to a fine for an issue that hasn't been resolved.
Right.
But most HOAs do go out and evaluate the property, because when that resale package is ordered, then they know that home is up for sale.
Right.
So then they will usually go out and make sure everything's up to date in accordance. So we do see some issues where homes, not necessarily in disrepair, but where people have not kept them up, or even minor issues with lighting, sometimes patios, sometimes decks, especially if the rules and regulations have changed since the home was done, or just as you indicated, people did not pull the proper permits with the county. Or comply with the HOA rules and regulations. So always best to get the homeowners association on board in advance and make sure that you're working with a reputable company that does have contact with those HOA and can make sure that anything's built or remodeled or repaired is done right the first time. Can create an issue. As you know, most people try to sell their house or settle on it 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
So if you do have a significant issue, that's not a lot of time to fix it, and it can delay settlement, which can be very costly, especially if you cannot comply with the terms of your contract. So
Absolutely.
I always say make sure it's done right the first time.
Absolutely. Which I was going to say, it sounds like in order to avoid all these complications, just abide by the bylaws.
Exactly.
By the HOA bylaws and do things right.
Definitely.
Absolutely. My next question to you is, why is it important to have an attorney at closing?
So as we previously talked about, the attorney, my role at settlement is to make sure that the buyer is receiving clean and clear title. So it's important to have an advocate if there's any significant issues. So when someone first buys a home, they'll either want to hire an agent or an attorney to assist them with that process. That person will always have their best interest at heart. When we are representing the contract or making sure that clean title is delivered at settlement, it means working with the buyers and sellers to make sure that happens. So we're more of a neutral role, seeing the best way we can resolve things. So if there's any discrepancy in terms of repairs that need to be made, we're acting more as a mediator or a neutral in that position. What do you want? What does the buyer want? What does the seller want? Is there any middle ground? But having an attorney or real estate agent on your side at the settlement and throughout that process, they'll be able to best advise you as to your options.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens in the case of for sale by owner? Well, I guess let me ask you this first. Are homeowners required to hire a settlement company or an attorney at closing?
Yes. So you would need an attorney. The buyer is going to want to make sure that they're receiving clean and clear title. So you could, if you were trying to get rid of a property, you could transfer it to someone. But if you're going through a lender requiring financing, as most people would be, the lender is going to want it to go through a settlement company. All lenders do require title insurance policies. They want us to insure title, after we go through that process, making sure there's no liens, no judgments, no encumbrances on the property, nothing that could later become an issue. We will issue title insurance, one, to the lender. Lender's policy always required by any institutional lender. The buyer or the owner's policy is optional, highly recommended for reasons that we've already discussed. But that lender, if you are going through the lending process using financing to obtain that property, they're going to want that title insurance. And in order to get the title insurance, you're going to have to go through a reputable title and settlement company like MBH Settlement Group. But if you were just transferring the property, so if you wanted to gift property to another individual, to a family member, to a friend, to a colleague, you could certainly do that just by executing a deed. There could be tax ramifications, and you'd always want to consult with an expert in the field in terms of tax ramifications, and consult with an attorney as well about what that means in terms of the transferring of the property. If you have a high value estate, you'll also want to consult with an estate planner to make sure whether or not you need to change any wills or estate planning documents, retirement planners. So it does impact a lot of fields if you decide to go outside of the traditional route. But it's always possible. You can contact someone like myself through Stepanuk Law Group, that is a law firm that is associated with me and my husband, to help you with that deed. But if you're going through the lending process and the formal buying and selling, you would want that settlement and title company to assist you with that process. Otherwise, there's just a lot of risks out there.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes. It's amazing how much knowledge homeowners need to have. It's all good stuff. And again, I'm just glad we're having this conversation because a lot of this stuff come up, when we meet with homeowners. So hopefully this helps a lot of them getting all those questions answered.
Right.
Okay. Next is, why does the buyer have the right to choose the title company?
First, by contract. So in Maryland, we have two forms, the Maryland Realtors Contract and also the GCAR, GCAAR, Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors. Both contracts do dictate that the buyer can pick the title company, title or settlement company. Reason being is that the buyer always has the option to obtain title insurance, as we've been discussing. So it's their right to choose that insurance company that they want to work with. Just like you have the right to go out and get your own homeowner's insurance, you can pick the company, whether you want to go at the big name individuals or a smaller company. That's your right to choose. Car insurance, auto insurance, homeowner's insurance, you would be able to pick that company. So that theme runs the same with title insurance. The buyer would pick. Seller usually goes along with the same title company, but if they have a preferred title company, they can also choose their own title company if they want to make sure that they're working with a specific vendor. It's called a split settlement, and there may be some other fees associated, but I'm happy to talk to anyone that's interested in having their own interests represented through their own title company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks again. Okay, so from here, I would like us to go further and talk about what I would really label as the elephant in the room, right? Which is PMI. What is PMI? Why is it needed? Tell us about it.
PMI is property mortgage insurance. So sometimes when someone obtains an institutional loan from a big name bank, that lender will flag the file as essentially a high risk individual. Not high risk in the sense that they're not going to pay it back, but they're purchasing a home and they have not put down at least 20% of the purchase price of the property. That's where we get into that loan to value ratio. So most lenders do want homeowners to put down at least 20% of the purchase price. We hear that all the time.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily true that you have to put 20% down. There are a lot of different programs out there, fair housing programs, a lot of Maryland, Virginia, DC programs that can assist you with that process. And again, you don't have to put that 20% down. But if you don't put that 20% down, the lender is going to require that you pay property mortgage insurance, which is insurance ensuring that you're going to pay your mortgage payment every month. So typically the people that don't put 20% down are just placed in a little bit of a higher risk category. Mm-hmm. So there's two ways you can get rid of that property mortgage insurance. If you have a FHA loan, so a traditional government FHA loan, you do have to refinance the property in order to get rid of the PMI on a traditional basis. You can always contact your lender or loan officer to see if there's other options, but typically a refinance is the best way to remove it in that scenario. But if you go through conventional financing, so any other kind of loan, then you may be able to remove the PMI one of two ways. One, by paying down your loan, or two, increasing the value of your property. Value of property can increase naturally through changes in the market. As we're seeing, home prices are rising. We're seeing comps in the area through various sales. So that may be one way you could remove that PMI. You can contact your loan officer. You can contact the realtor that you originally worked with to see the comps in the area to see if there has been a significant change. Then you'll want to reach out to your lender, present those comps, comparable sales, and see if another appraisal is needed to remove that PMI. But another way you can remove the PMI in the same thread is increasing the property value is making repairs and renovations. Work with a great company like Emprove Remodel, and you can certainly talk to people about the best way to get return on your dollar. There are some repairs and renovations that will have significant increases in the value of your property. Get it reappraised, submit that information to your lender, and you may be able to remove that property mortgage insurance, the PMI.
Absolutely.
Of course, that's a monthly fee. You're paying mortgage insurance on a monthly basis as part of your total mortgage payment. So removing that could free up hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis. So Although it seems costly to make some repairs or renovations on your home, it's important to work with a reputable company who can share honest feedback about the return you'll see on that dollar. It could have long-term ramifications on your monthly cash flow.
Absolutely. So do homeowners need to refinance in order to get rid of it, or as they pay the loan down, does it just go away? Or what kind of actions do they need to take?
So the FHA loans are the ones that typically you do have to refinance in order to remove the PMI. I say this, always check with your lender because each loan could be a little bit different. So that's the best place to check. But traditionally on conventional loans, so standard financing, a regular 15 or 30 or ARM loan, when you sign the documents at settlement, there is a PMI disclosure that says if you do nothing, the PMI will be removed on this date. It's calculated based on when they think you'll pay down enough of the loan to get to that 80-20 loan to value ratio.
Sure.
So at least 20% equity in your house.
Right.
But there's also a date in there that says if you contact us sooner, usually it's about a year in advance of that date, we will remove it.
Sure.
So if you do nothing, it's this date. But you can contact us usually about a year earlier and we'll reevaluate your case and likely remove it.
Right.
You can always contact them at any time before that with updated information. They're not your advocate.
Yeah.
Although you worked with them and they're great people, they're not
Yeah.
your advocates. They're not going to be keeping track of your file to see when the property values in your area increase or to monitor whether or not you've made any improvements. So that's a little bit on the homeowner to update the lender with that information. Again, submit comparable sales in the area, have the home reappraised, submit information about the repairs and renovations, and that's really where it is important to make sure the repairs and renovations are done right. Don't go back to your lender notifying you that you did repairs and renovations without getting HOA approval,
Right.
without getting county permits,
Absolutely.
because then you're flagging some issues that the lender's not going to be pleased about.
Absolutely.
When you sign those documents at settlement, in the deed of trust, you're agreeing to keep the home in good condition, keep it insured, and not do anything outside the terms of those loans.
Yeah.
Repairs to the property without the proper permitting can trigger significant issues. So definitely don't raise that to your lender's attention. Do it right the first time, remove the PMI,
Yep.
move forward with extra cash flow. Those are the steps.
Absolutely. So how much is the PMI on a monthly basis?
It varies based on the amount of the loan and the risk that the lender.
Is it a percentage of the loan, or how does that work?
It varies by the loan, so that would be the best way to contact your lender and see what options are. There are different types of PMI, but usually it's a percentage of the actual loan amount.
So so if we're talking about home improvement, and let's say we're talking about renovating to increase the value of the property, so essentially they can repair, let's say they can put on a new roof and replace that PMI with a roof payment or kitchen payment.
Absolutely.
And increase, the value of the home. I guess not all bad things came out of COVID after all, huh?
No, definitely not.
It definitely increased a lot of home values, if not all, at this point. We all
Absolutely.
know the real estate market is still very crazy nowadays.
Yes.
And so, okay.
Hot
very
market.
Good. Yeah, for sure.
Good time to be a homeowner.
Right? For sure. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's pretty much we've covered everything. But if anyone has any questions, Gus knows how to reach me. He'll
Absolutely.
provide my contact information, but I'm happy to help anyone that's buying a home, selling a home, thinking about it,
Absolutely.
thinking about becoming a homeowner. Any real estate questions, feel free to reach out.
And that said, would you mind if you tell the viewers and the listeners how they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. So right now I'm working for MBH Settlement Group. We're located in Bethesda. My office is located in Bethesda, but we are throughout the DC metropolitan area, 20 offices throughout DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland. So you can contact me on my cell phone, 703-627-4371. Call, texting is great. You can also send me a quick email. So K Stepanuk, STEPANUK @mbh.com.
Perfect. Okay, so for the viewers and the listeners, please leave us comments. We'd like to hear your feedback. We'd like to know more about what you have in mind, what questions you have about these topics, or any topic that's related to settlement, home improvement, real estate. We'd love to answer those questions for you. That said, Kim, thank you so much again for being with us today. We had a pleasure of meeting with you, having this conversation. I know you're very, very busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time, carving the time out of your very busy schedule to be with us
No
today.
problem. Happy to help. Love these chats.
Love it. Thank you so much. And for the viewers, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.